I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Essentia Health is finalizing its Vision Northland building project, which would be the largest private investment in Duluth's history. We'll talk with Essentia leaders about the plan.
With just days until the November 6th election, we'll talk politics with some interested observers.
And we'll have the week's business headlines from Business North.
Stay right where you are. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome again to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. This week's show was recorded on Thursday afternoon. Now here's Julie with our very first guests.
All right, thanks Denny, and welcome everyone. Essentia Health's Vision Northland project to transform its downtown Duluth medical campus is ready to take off. The $800 million project is the largest ever for Duluth and could spur more investment and development. Well, here to tell us more is Dr. Robert Erickson, the physician leader of the project for Essentia. And Mark Hayward is Senior Vice President of Operations for Essentia Health. And thanks to both of you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and visit with us.
Well, thank you for having us.
Dr. Erickson, why has Essentia decided to make such a big investment in its facilities at this point in time?
Well, we feel this is a critical time for us to improve our patient care. We want to create a very safe, healing environment. We want to increase the access, affordability, and quality of care. St. Mary's and parts of it is 100 years old, just celebrated its 100th year anniversary, and it's hard for us to keep up with technology. It's done its job over the years and done it admirably, and it's time for a change.
Mark, it sounds like Essentia is reaching out to the public to further explain what's taking place. Why is that so important?
Yeah, I think we've started meetings with the public to share what we're doing and to get input and feedback. It's important that we do that to understand the ideas the public has for how we can, really serve the needs best of the community that we serve.
Mm-hmm. For those who haven't been following this religiously, talk about the project and what you're planning to incorporate into the medical complex.
Sure, we have a new hospital tower that will replace some of our facilities that are at St. Mary's Medical Center right now. So that includes a new operating suite. It includes new hospital units, which will have private beds, which is very important. Right now, most of our beds at St. Mary's are semi-private. They're shared rooms, and the new single beds will be a great new experience for patients, for their families to have.
When do you hope to break ground, and how long will the project take, Mark?
Yeah, we plan to break ground next spring, late next spring. It will take 3 years from then, so we anticipate move-in in 2022, sometime in the summer of 2022.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Erickson, what will happen to the current St. Mary's Medical Center?
Julie, we don't have concrete plans on that at this time. We do know the property is owned by the Benedictine Sisters of the St. Scholastica Monastery, and there's a discernment process that's been going on since July.
Mm-hmm. So how will the new medical center better benefit the patient?
Benefiting the patient, number one, single patient rooms, as Mark had noted. It has been noted that it's a safer environment for the patient. I've been practicing St. Mary's for 27 years, and it would be practice heaven to practice in what we see in our renderings of the new hospital. But for coming down to the patient is efficient care for nursing. And just a healing environment and a better environment for the patient.
As a physician, have there been challenges providing quality care in the existing facilities, or what do you see as the real need driving this?
We have very dedicated staff and they work around some of the limitations of shared patient rooms and enhancing the patient experience currently. Currently, the patients are well cared for at St. Mary's, but we believe that with a new facility, it'll just enhance that experience of the patient.
Emergency rooms generally get overloaded with patients almost every single day. How will that be addressed? Either one of you gentlemen can
Yeah, we have plans for a new emergency room in the plans, and so we've done a lot of studies and work to make sure we're sizing that appropriately for those peak times, so we can accommodate those peaks. And we also have some new ways to manage those peaks with other facilities we have on the downtown campus. So we've got those plans in process to make sure we're set and ready with facilities and staffing to manage the peaks.
And I would like to say, Danny, that part of the construction philosophy is flexibility. So a patient room can go from a regular patient room to an ICU room. So we can flex up and from patients go up to the emergency room, up to the ICU quickly. So I don't know if you remember back in the bird flu epidemic, maybe about 10 years ago, we were concerned that there's going to be enough ICUs capability,
Sure.
but now we have rooms that are
Sure.
flexible to be able to accommodate that.
Are you still in the process, Doctor, of determining exactly where all the different medical units will be placed?
That's a good question. We've been working very hard at that over the past 6 months, and we've had numerous user groups. So this is not a project of just one committee. This is
Sure.
a project of the employees at St. Mary's, and we tend to expand that input. And also we look for public input. So we were getting public input in Tuesday's meeting. And we do have a website that they'll show that the public is invited to send in their thoughts, and we'd like to entertain any thought.
So you had the public meeting last Tuesday. What are you hearing from people as they come forward and hear what you have planned and have an opportunity to speak out?
Yeah, I think we heard a lot of excitement for the project, of what it will mean for Duluth, for the region, for kind of the economic opportunities it presents for the community and for Essentia's future. There were questions about what happens to spaces that we will have to vacate as we build a new facility. So there were questions about that. There were questions, I think, an input about how do we engage our staff in the process and engage the community in the process. So those were the things that came up most often in the meeting Tuesday evening.
Will this edifice then be built in stages so you don't lose space? I mean, you're going to have to stay in business while construction is on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So this new facility will, for the most part, not interrupt any of our facilities operations. There are a few small areas that will be impacted by that, and those are the areas we're working now to really have plans for how to address those. And it's really, if you know where our blue ramp is downtown, it's really in that space that'll be impacted most.
And that was one decision to bring it down the hill, Denny, so it is away from the current St. Mary's facility. But granted, there are going to be some inconveniences for the patients, but our contractors are very, very sensitive to that and will allow patient flow during construction.
And our staff are very excited about the integration of the campus. Right now we're on kind of 4 blocks up the hill, and this will kind of bring it all together around 2 blocks and make it much easier to move patients between areas. There'll be an on-stage and off-stage, so patients won't have to go through kind of public corridors to go from one place to the next, which is really a nice improvement in their experience. And our staff will be much closer integrated, so they'll be able to see and work with colleagues much more closely.
Now, you asked at one point the legislature for help and didn't get it. How important is state funding in putting this whole package together at this point? Are all of the pieces in place?
The pieces are in place. The project is going ahead. We're working with the city, and it is possible that the next legislative session that they may bring this up, but that's again working collaboratively with the city in the medical district type of concept.
Mark, you mentioned economic development a few questions back. Speak to what you envision as the economic impact of this project on the community and on the region.
Yeah, I think there's a number of economic impacts. One is, just the investment that we're making of, $800 million in this project is by itself going to be a big economic driver, bring lots of jobs and during the construction phase. But beyond that, the growth that we'll see in, referrals and, care being provided in the new facility will have an impact. We're hoping it also spurs economic development around our construction and others coming in and providing other economic development opportunities around the construction that we build.
Mark, you mentioned growth. Do you expect you may have to then add staff to the hospital?
Yeah, we have, we hope we'll see growth in certain areas. I think there's a number of things that will drive growth from our population demographics, and will drive growth in some areas as we all get ready for maybe orthopedic procedures that we all will need as we see the baby boomers moving into their later years in life. So we'll, one of our challenges, I think, will be having enough staff. We all know that staffing will be critical for us. We think the new facility will be a great attractor of people to this area who want to work in a new facility and this level of state-of-the-art technology, state-of-the-art facility. So we will need lots of staff to staff the new facility.
Your work in trauma is well known. In fact, you were just named one of the top trauma centers in the state of
Level 1
Minnesota,
trauma.
Level 1. How will that become affected?
So it enhances our care for level 1 trauma. Helicopter lands on the top, and there's direct elevators down to the emergency room, and there's direct elevators up to the operating room. So the flow of the patient is much more streamlined than it currently is.
Mm-hmm. How important, Doctor, is a state-of-the-art facility in terms of some of that physician recruitment that Mark was talking about? Are you having trouble drawing in the best talent at this point? Is this a selling point that's going to help you do that in the future?
We do believe it'll be a selling point, and we believe it'll be a destination medical center that will help us recruit the best and the brightest.
Mm-hmm. So what's the next step?
Next step is is continued planning. And as we refine the plans, we call design development, and then after it becomes construction documents, and then with the anticipated shovel in the ground in April of 2019.
And when could people expect to actually be walking through the doors of the beautiful new buildings?
2022, and so right now we've moved out of what's called schematic design phase, where you lay out the floor and say here's where the rooms are going to go, the corridors. But now we're into how detailed design of that room. Where does the equipment go? How is the layout? And we'll be having areas where we'll do construction mock-ups of cardboard mock-ups of the rooms, the operating rooms, the hospital rooms. Have staff come and give feedback on that to make sure it works really well for them. And even virtual reality kind of ways to see the new space and walk through the new space. So that's very exciting for us to engage more staff.
Well, some big things happening at Essentia. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing some insights into it.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us.
One of the most expensive midterm election campaigns in history is just about over for candidates seeking state and federal office. Minnesota is one of the key state battlegrounds for control of Congress, and the advertising has been prolific here. At stake is not only control of the U.S. House of Representatives, but control of state government as well. We've got a couple of politically connected guests joining us with their take on the election. Representative Jason Metsa is a DFLer from Virginia, whose political term is up now at the end of the year. And Mike Hickey is the state director of NFIB Minnesota. That's a conservative business group. I want to thank both of you for being here this evening. Jason, the Iron Range is looking less blue and more red than it was a few years ago. Why have some long-time Democrats shifted their allegiance to the other party?
You know, I think it's a combination of people just being frustrated with how partisan politics have got. And they want to see that change. They swing from side to side on it. Up north in my district, we just had news today about the PolyMet project getting its permits from the DNR. And that's been a 14-year process. So I think right now what people need to do is focus on the candidates, research them, and make sure they're voting for people that are going to stand up for the values they want representing them in Congress.
Has the Democratic Party abandoned the Iron Range?
No. I wouldn't have served 6 years down at the Capitol if I think the district thought that. I think, right now we still have good, strong House candidates that are coming out. Congressman Nolan's coming off a 6-year run in very hotly contested races. I think it's more the political climate that we're
Okay.
in.
Mike, how would you rate the importance of this year's midterm election?
Well, it's huge, Julie. The impact at the federal level is going to be really big. Are we going to have a government that's just totally tied up in partisan fighting, or are we going to? Have I lost my microphone?
Just clip it back on
Am I
if you
doing
want
okay?
there.
See if
You
I
can
do
keep
this.
talking.
You can keep
I can
talking.
do this under
Yeah,
pressure.
there you go. Oh, you just knocked it off again.
Knocked it off again. Will the government be totally tied up, with this kind of fighting about trying to impeach the president and probably doing very little? I'm not sorry, guys. I'm not.
Oh,
doing
you can
very
hold
well.
it if you'd like.
And trying to impeach the president, not doing anything else. And at the state level, the whole direction of our state government is really up right now. Jeff Johnson, if he wins, is probably going to turn Minnesota into a red state. Or if it's a big loss for Johnson, maybe Minnesota goes back to being a complete Democrat state. So a lot's at stake.
We see a lot of political ads on television here in the region this season. Again, a lot of attack ads. And my question is, are these, they're sponsored by political action committees. Do these ads actually work, or are they doing more harm than good?
We're told they do work, although I think they really annoy people. And some of them just seem to be fictitious. They're taking one tiny thing and blowing it out of proportion dramatically. But, the experts keep saying at every show I listen to that they work, and that's why they keep doing it. But I think people are really getting worn out on it.
What are your thoughts in terms of whether people get an accurate depiction of what the candidates are from the ads that are on TV right now?
I think it's a darn shame that the money in politics right now is really what's driving what people are listening to. I would rather see, and I know quite a few other folks around the state probably share the same view, we should have candidates campaigning on the issues and that be the main focus. All these negative ads, all the money's coming from outside the district. They paint someone in a way that's very unfair, and I would agree with Mike on what he just said. It works, it seems, but I think that to get back to government working, we need to take the money out of politics. And I know Joe Radinovich has been out front on that, criticizing the negative ads, the negative spending, and you've got billionaires from Las Vegas who own casinos who are putting $1 million into a race in northeastern Minnesota where they have no interest. And that's just not right, and it's not the Minnesota way. If this district could be bought, Stuart Mills was a pretty independently wealthy guy. And I think that with the amount of money that was put into that race, we would have seen that change happen already. I'm confident the voters here are going to send Joe Radinovich out to Congress to work hard on their
Mike,
behalf.
do endorsements mean anything today?
Oh, we hope. National Federation of Independent Business is big on endorsements. But actually, I wanted to respond to what Julie just said. Jason probably has his favorite one to complain about, but this absolute dishonest ad by Alliance for Greater Minnesota about Jeff Johnson wants to subject you to pre-existing condition restrictions is absolutely false. He wants to go back to the old risk pool we had that worked way better than Obamacare for that small number of people in the individual market who don't have employer coverage, don't have government coverage, don't have Medicare, don't have Medicaid. It worked better. The market wasn't blowing up. People weren't suffering through what they're suffering through now. And that's my favorite one, and maybe Jason's got one he wants to mention. But Jeff Johnson clearly says he wants to go back to the very successful risk pool Minnesota had since 1976 that ended in about 2015 or so.
Did you want to respond to that?
I think most people want health care that works. And I would say watch what people do, not what they say. We have the Republicans who are out in control right now who want to repeal the pre-existing conditions and make sure that the big business of insurance benefits and not the actual person who's insured. And those dollars could be better spent making sure that more people have access to better care. And I would push back a little bit on what Mike was just saying. People, the healthcare system right now has gotten more and more expensive. The rates are climbing at a rate that people can't keep up with. On my races that I've run in, I go talk to my small businesses. My parents are small business owners. It's tough out there for people. We need solutions that work, not just a back and forth. And right now, I think Congress and our congressional leaders, our Senate leaders, and the president have made pretty clear that their plan is to repeal the Obamacare and leave our seniors, citizens hanging out there by getting rid of their Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And they're calling them entitlements. I've paid in every single paycheck I've done into those programs. So has everyone else, and they should be there for people when they need them.
So is health care the biggest political issue facing the Northland right now, or is it jobs?
They're making such a big issue out of health insurance. What Jason didn't say was he's referring to the bill the House Republicans passed in Washington. The Senate never acted. It said you could nullify the guaranteed issue, but you had to set up a risk pool and seek a waiver to do all that, and with some continuity to it. And so that's what they did, because mixing the high-risk people into the regular market blew up the market. People's premiums were increased by 66 to 116% in just a 2-year period between 2016 and 17. Jason knows that. We passed emergency legislation. This didn't happen by accident. It happened due to Obamacare, solely due to Obamacare. So it is a really big issue, Dennis. The state really has a health insurance hangover right now from Obamacare, but I'm just really appalled by these ads that make it sound like Jeff Johnson just wants to leave you out in the cold. It's not true. He wants to go back to what we had that was far more successful prior to this Obamacare mess. But people listen to the ad, don't look into it, and I'm worried about how they're going to vote.
So are these PAC ads full of lies?
That one is, yes.
I would say that a lot of the independent groups out there say what they want to say. If it has some semblance of a truth in it, they call it the truth, period, when in fact it's kind of smoke and mirrors. And that's why I would advocate for people to just go onto the website, see where the candidates stand. One thing I look at, you mentioned jobs. I think healthcare is the #1 issue, but I think jobs up here are very important. People are concerned. They want the economy that they've seen benefit the CEOs and other folks, where we've seen a 913% increase since 1978 in their pay. Regular people want to see an increase in their pay too. They've got increasing college tuition, medical costs, and interest rates now starting to go up, and they need to benefit as well. And we have a strong economy if we have a strong middle class. And that's where I would say, really, for me, Tim Walz and Jeff Johnson differ, is Jeff Johnson wants to make Minnesota into Wisconsin. So it's a Walz or Wisconsin vote. He wants right to work. I know a lot of folks, even on the conservative spectrum, want to be able to collectively bargain for their contracts. Our steel workers, laborers, nurses, drive the economy in our communities, and I think that we should be voting to protect that collective bargaining.
Real quickly, we've got lots of races on the ballot coming up. How motivated are voters on each side to get out there and vote this time around?
I think people are really motivated around here. I've been in Duluth at events. I've been up on the Iron Range at events. We just had 350 people on Monday night show up for an event with Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, Joe Radinovich, and Tim Walz.
Okay, Representative Jason Metsa, Mike Hickey, we're out of time. Thank you both very much.
You bet.
As we just alluded to a few minutes ago, big business news this week as the Minnesota DNR announced just before we recorded our show has made a decision on permits for the proposed Polymet copper mine. The state agency has granted its permit to mine to the Polymet project, along with a number of other permits needed to construct the state's first non-ferrous mine. This is a major step forward for the controversial project, which still awaits air and water quality permits from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, as well as permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. A Polymet news release called the permit to mine crucial and said site preparation will begin this winter at the former LTV mining processing facility. Polymet CEO John Cherry said the release of the DNR permits provides a level of certainty that will allow the company to move forward with financing and final engineering design.
And now the rest of the week's business news from the editors at Business North. The Bayfield County Economic Development Corporation announced Cole Rabska will succeed Scotty Sandstrom as executive director upon his December 31st retirement. Rabska currently is working with Sandstrom to become familiar with the job. The new director previously was employed as a technology education teacher for the Drummond Area School District. Rabska most recently worked as general manager for Telemark Vacations condominiums.
It's not the final decision, but the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission on Monday moved the Nemadji Trail Energy Center another step forward. The $700 million electric generating plant is being proposed by Minnesota Power and Dairyland Power Cooperative and would be powered by natural gas. Proponents say it will employ 25 full-time workers, support 130 indirect jobs, and generate more than $1 billion during the coming 20 years. It has been opposed by others who argue it produces more electricity than is needed and still relies on fossil fuel. The Superior plant remains subject to review by Wisconsin regulators.
Creative entrepreneurs, such as people skilled in crafts and makers of products, will play a strong role in the region's future. That's according to a Minnesota Public Radio economics commentator, Chris Farrell. Farrell addressed the Regional Economics Indicators Forum breakfast. He said creative businesses are making a strong rebound, pointing to the Twin Ports and Bayfield-Ashland area firms. Farrell suggested the area support new entrepreneurs by providing space for pop-up stores and limiting the degree of time-consuming government regulation they face. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Well, our time is up, but if you have a comment, be sure to call, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org, and visit the WDSC website for the latest program updates, news and job openings at the station, and special events in the region. And Julie, I'm sure most of us will be heading for the polls this coming Tuesday.
That is true. Make sure you get out there and cast your vote.
For Julie and the crew at WDSC, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.